Okay, now that we have seen how to actually apply the business rules onto the edit screen, mind you, even if it's on the edit screen, whenever a person or a moderator is submitting a new issue, it would apply the business rules too, because it will be a new issue and all the fields will be blank. And when it's being edited, all the other business rules again will be supplemented onto the screen. Right, so how can we do that? Because you can see we only see limited fields within our edit screen or our new screen. So how do we apply that to our detail screen? That's a great question. So first up, we will look at the very same business rule that is on the block. You will see it where it says date fixed should not be visible until the status column gets changed to fixed. Right, that's basically the same business rule that we've had for the edit screen as well. So what can we do to make our job much more easier? We have already written the function for that to actually make the date fixed to not be visible if the status is not changed to fixed. So what can we do? Go to your tree view, and on the left hand side of the screen of the tree view, on the edit screen, of course, expand your edit form and look for date fixed. That's the data card date fixed. Then if either you're using the properties pane on the right hand side of the screen, you can check for the visibility of the properties pane. But in my case, I like to use the properties that are on the top of the screen or on the formula bar. So I'll change the property from height to visible, and you'll see that very same function that we wrote for the edit screen, and obviously that fits into this business rule that says date fixed should not be visible until the status column gets changed to fixed. So in this case, we will just quickly highlight this and copy it. Right, and then we can go to our detail screen, because we're going to be using this very same concept or function on the detail screen. Right, so we need to set up our detail screen and change quickly all the fields that need business rules applied to them. Right, okay, we're on the detail screen, as you can see, and all of the fields are being displayed currently. That is great. Right, on the left hand side of the screen, you have to click on detail screen 1 and then obviously expand the detail form that you have on your detail screen and look for the date fixed data card. On that data card, obviously you will need to use, in my preference, the properties that are at the top or the formula bar, and then switch it to the visible property and change it from true to the function that we copied from our edit screen. That's awesome, right? Because you can see quickly that the date fixed data card is no longer visible on our detail screen. Okay, let's move on to our next business rule. Similar business rules we followed for the edit screen. In this case now, it's saying fixed image should not be visible until the status column gets changed to fixed. Similar to the date fixed function or date fixed business rule, the image fixed or fixed image should not be visible up until the status is changed to fixed, right? Like I said earlier on, this function that we already written comes in handy. So let's look for image fixed, and then we click on image fixed. We go to the properties of image fixed, we choose visible, right? We change it from true to the copied function that we copied earlier on our edit screen. Then the next business rule is fixed approval should not be visible until the status is changed to fixed too. So again, we apply the same concept or business rule for fixed approval. So on the data cards or on the data cards that are visible or available on your detail screen, look for fixed approval. In this case, when you look for fixed approval, right, fixed approval is where the admin will be approving the specific issue and all of those on all sorts of things. So to allow the admin, obviously we need to be able to use the fixed approval data card or field so that anyone, the moderator, the inspector, and the admin can see on the detail screen. In our case, if you notice that we don't see the fixed approval field. In a case where you don't see your fields being displayed onto the detail screen, follow the same process we followed earlier on our session. You go to your tree view for your screens, go to the detail screen, click on the detail form, and then click on the properties pane and click on fields to edit the fields on that screen. Because we're looking for fixed approval, you need to add that specific data card or field onto the screen. So you click on add field and you search for fixed approval. You add it into your screen, and then the data card will be added onto your screen, onto your detail screen on your application. Right, you can see at the bottom that fixed approval is there, and if you don't like the order of things, you can move it. You can move the data cards around just like I showed you earlier on. But what are we trying to do now is to apply the business rule for fixed approval. So on the tree view, I normally use the tree view all the time. Click on fixed approval, go to the properties, go to the visible property of fixed approval, change it from true to the very same function that we copied from our edit screen. And then again, now we need to move on to the next business rule for our detail screen, because not all of those specific fields should be visible up until they meet specific business requirements, right? The next one is cost fixed should not be visible until the status is changed to assigned, right? Again, now we need to change the visibility of the cost fixed property or cost fixed column or field. So on the tree view again, click on cost fixed on your detail form, go to the property visible on the formula bar at the top, as you can see on the screen, change it from true to that very same function that we copied earlier on. Now in this case, we need to change that from fixed to assigned so that it can be able to meet our specific requirements or business requirements, so that they can be applied onto the screen. Now you can see that cost fixed is no longer visible on the screen. And then the next business rule is the inspection comment column or data card should not be visible until the status is changed to inspected. Right, in our case, we will click on the inspection comment data card, go to the formula bar at the top, look for the visible property of that data card, change it, paste in that very same function that we copied from our edit screen, just change a few parameters. In this case, our business rule says that this data card should not be visible up until the status is changed to inspected. Right, so the very fun thing that I love about Power Apps and when you're building apps within Power Apps is that whenever you have similar business requirements or business rules, if you apply it to one data card, you can reuse it to other data cards, and you will change a few parameters here and there, like just how we did now. Our business requirement or business rule earlier on was if specific columns should not be visible if the status is equal to or not equal to fixed. And then again, now we had to change it to meet the if the status is not equal to inspected, then the specific data card should not be visible. So that's what I like about the Power Platform and about anything in general. You'll be able to reuse some of the functions and some of the business rules that you have onto your application. Right, let's move on to the next one. The data inspected should not be visible until the status column is changed to inspected. So it's this very same business rule as this one. So we'll just copy this one now instead of having to change parameters, and go to data inspected, go to data inspected data cards properties, and go to the visible property, change it from true, and we paste it in there. And you can see now our properties or our columns that are showing on the screen are very much limited in this case. Right. Also, there is another thing around business rules that you would have onto the screen, right? if you have, like I mentioned earlier on, if you have similar business rules, always make sure that you just reuse them. It'll save you a lot of time. So I think, and I guess that we have all of the business rules that we need for our detail screen and even for our edit screen. So in this case, for detail screen, there wasn't much because there's no editing on the screen. It's just about the visibility of all of the properties or all of the columns onto the user or the moderator or the inspector. So you just change those things around, and obviously you can see that this is not nice. At the top, you can change it. Either you can change the font size of that specific text or label. On the properties pane, you can make it 24 so that obviously it can be visible properly to your users or whoever is using your application. So I'll just leave that as is. I was just showing that so that you can be able to see how to manipulate things around. Right. Okay. So we have added all of our business rules that we needed. Now we need to add a home screen. I said let's add a home screen as homework, so we will need to add that home screen. So how do you do that? You click on new screen here, or if you don't like, you can click on insert. This is where you are able to play around with all the controls that you would need for your application. But in this case, we'll click on new screen and we will choose a blank screen. Power Apps will add a new screen, a new blank screen for you, and then I'll just zoom in and zoom out. And first and foremost, what should we do? We need to rename the screen onto reflecting what the name of the screen is. So we will say that is home as the name of the screen, and again just zoom out and zoom in again so that you can be able to see this. Then just change a little bit of color off the screen based off your requirements and how you want your application or your home screen to look like. Then on the feel, on the properties pane of the screen, you can change it to light blue if you want to, and obviously you can still control how that light blue looks like for you in that case. Right. So if you want to add an image, you can still add an image too. Or if you want to add more colors, you can change the color to become something different. So if you don't want to use the standard colors, you can use a custom color. And I know we've been talking about custom things within this session in terms of a custom table in Dataverse, now a custom color within your Power App. So if you want to make it lighter, for an example, you can make the screen a bit lighter. And then obviously it will depend on how you want your application to look like for your users. Obviously they need an application that is user friendly and is usable for them, gives them better user experience. So I changed that a little bit and then I'll leave it as is. Next, what do we need to do? Now we need to have a better user experience for our application where we welcome the user and we welcome them by showing a picture of them and a welcome message and calling them by name. How do we do that? First, let's show their profile picture. What should we do now is that we go at the top, click on insert and choose media, expand that and choose an image. And then on image, we then change the image from sample image on the formula bar and we change it to var user. If you remember, var user is our variable to store the user information, logged in user dot image. Voila, you see, Olajuwon was very nice big smile on the picture here, right? This is how you welcome your user and showing their profile picture in this case, right? But we do not want it to look like this. This is not user friendly for our users. They don't want to see a bigger picture of themselves. And you've seen different applications or mobile applications that you've used recently. So what should you do in this case? So on the properties pane on the right hand side of the screen, while you have your image clicked on or selected, just scroll down towards the bottom, right? This is your image, which is image 1, and then you change the border radius to, which is entirely up to you. Normally I would use 75. Let's see, 75 normally would make it look like this, and then you just reduce the image size obviously to a much more manageable size, right? That may not be ideal for our users, or you can change it to 100 if you want to, and maybe it will look a bit different from how it already looks like. Change it to 100 and you have a better user experience, or a better rounded image. But if you want to have rounded images or rounded buttons within your application, you use the border radius of your image, right? So I don't want to dwell on that too much. You can play around it on your own. So you can put it at the top. Then the next thing is to call the user by their name when we are welcoming them on the app. So we will click on insert, then add a text label, and on that text label we'll just reduce the size of the text label a little bit, and then leave it like that, right? So we change the text property of this specific label onto our welcome message. Ideally, normally people would do this and say welcome Ola, and that would be basically hard coded. But in a case now where you have multiple users of your application, right, what's gonna happen is that they will always see welcome Ola, and you don't want that. You want it to be unique to each specific user. How can you do that? So you'll remove welcome Ola and say welcome, right? And then outside of that, of those inverted commas, you can add an ampersand sign. So this is called string concatenation or string combination within people who do programming. And then you want to call the user by name, so we will call our variable var user back, because we want to access the user's properties or user's details. And then we choose full name, right? So it will say welcome var user dot full name. In this case, welcome Olaruwanju Oyinbook, right? And then the next part, now if you want it to be like your application is shouting, you add that ampersand sign again, and then what you do is you add an exclamation mark afterwards. And then basically that's how it is. And then you just format that welcome message. You go to the properties pane, you change the font weight from being normal to being semi-bold, and it will give the user a better experience, right? Next up, again, you need to give them a full sense of which kind of application they are using. So let's add another label. You add this label on our home screen. You just drag it a little bit to the bottom. You then align it to center, right? And then let's change the text. We say, what's the name of this application? It's Facility Maintenance App, right? The name of our application is the Facility Maintenance App. Then again, we change the font weight of that label. We make it semi-bold and we leave it at that. So now it's a bit better. Few more elements that we need to add. Another image so that it looks proper. You know, home pages or home screens for mobile applications need to be very nice and very welcoming to the user. In this case, we will add another image. So this is fully dependent on you, what you want to do for your application. And then you center that image here. Now, in our case, we're no longer going to use the user's image, but we want to use a static image that will suggest what exactly is our application, right? So you go to the properties pane now in this case, because we're not going to use any function to set the image. You go to the properties pane, you choose image as the first option, you change it from none and you click on add an image file. It will open up or pop up a window of your file explorer, and then obviously you choose the image of your choice. That would obviously suggest that this specific application is for this, and then you click on open, and then it will be added onto your application, and it will make your home screen a little bit better. So you can see now there's a some form of mechanic already onto the application, and you can resize it however you want. and then you put it like that, and that's fine. So what's the last few elements that we need? We need 3 buttons. And how do you add buttons within Power Apps? Similar to how you add your labels and your image. You go to Insert, and you can choose button. So you can choose button 3 times. So I'll choose it for the first time, and I'll drag it right below this handyman, and then I'll insert another button again, and on that I will drag it a little bit to right after the first button, and then add the last one, which then will go to the bottom of, or right after the second button. Right, let's customize those buttons quickly. So this one is for the admin. So the admin is going to be using this button, obviously for admin purposes. So you can just change the name of the text that is being displayed onto the button on the properties pane, which you will change it to admin. And then let's change the color. Obviously, whatever color that you choose, depending on you, I'm going to choose this color, and just play around and make it a little bit more custom. So if I make it custom and I make it a little bit darker and a little more darker again, I think that should work. I don't like, normally personally, I do not like buttons that look like squares because it's not user friendly, and I know most of us are used to mobile applications that have better UI buttons that look quite nice. How can you achieve that with Power Apps? Similar to how we use it for that image, the profile image of the user. You just scroll down, you find border radius. It's up to you on how you want to set it. My personal favorite is normally 24. And then when you change it to 24, you can clearly see that the shape of the button changes to be a little bit more rounded. But if you wanted to make it a little bit more rounded, you can make it 30, you can make it 50. It's up to you. Right, let's follow the same concept for the second button too. We change the text on the properties pane to report. So this will be used by our moderator who's reporting the issue that we have on the facilities, or on the facility of the university. We change it to report, and then we change the color again, similar to how we did it earlier on. We either choose this color, which is green, because we want them to go onto that specific screen so that they can report something. Green means go. So you want to have elements that users are more familiar with for specific actions that they want to take. So I'll use this dark green because I like it. And then again, same concept. I change the border radius and I make it 30 because I want it to match the first button. And now we do the same concept for the next screen, or next button in our case. This button, we change the text and we make it to be exit. And then we change the color, we choose red. And then voila, you have your home screen. It works properly, and when we play the application, you can see your home screen looks like this. Then one more thing to change is the border radius. So don't make the mistake I did. Make it to 30 and you will see that your buttons match each other. Now a homework for you guys is that with the buttons, when you use buttons within Power Apps, you have an option to change the hover color. You can see when I hover over these buttons, they change back to blue. They change back to that blue that we were using earlier on. If you want to use the hover color to change to the very same color as the button, or the normal color of the button, you will use the hover color within Power Apps. So it's up to you guys on how you can figure out how to make that out, or make that work within Power Apps, and then you can mention us on Twitter. And obviously, whilst you're building this entire application, and change this hover color here. A hint is that you can use the properties on the properties pane of this specific button, so you can see all of those properties are available to you and how you can actually change it. Right, now the last thing for our home screen is that for the first part of the series, we want moderators or inspectors to be able to report a specific issue onto this specific application, or have access to the issues that were reported. So in this case, we will go to the properties pane of the report button. I use the formula bar. We change the on select property, which is the event of that specific button. We change the on select of that property. We change it to navigate. Right? We use the navigate function to browse screen 1, which is where they will see all of the reported issues. And then browse screen 1, we add a screen transition. So I like using fade. So I'll say fade, and then I'll close that. So let's see this in action. Play the application. I click on report. It takes me to this screen. Right. We have our home screen. It's done and dusted. So let me close this. And one thing now, so that when you deploy or publish your application, if you have your home screen as the last screen, automatically Power Apps will open the first screen of your application if you have your app published. So to avoid that, what you can do is to move this home screen up to be the first screen. So how do you do that? You just click on those 3 dots and you choose move up and you choose move up. And then that should be fine. So this will be your first screen of your application. When your application first opens, it will come to this screen and then people can navigate to the other screens. One last thing, let's add a drop down here to filter everything that's here. So this is an extra feature. So you will click on the browse gallery 1 on browse screen 1 and just resize it a little bit. You put it like this. And then what you will change now, you click on insert, just click away from the gallery, click on insert and go to input, expand input, choose drop down. So this is an extra functionality that you can add onto your app. Just drag it a little bit here and then make sure it fits for your, it fits the size for your application. Right. Now, you can see that drop down is just saying 1. That's not what we want to do. We want to filter this gallery based off of the statuses of the issues within our data source. How can we do that? So quickly we set the items of this drop down to the different statuses we have on our application. So we will change the property items to not be drop down sample, but to be choices. And then you will say, in this case, if you say choices, which column are you using from your data source? In our case, the name of our column is issue status facility demos, and then you close it like that. Now you can see, if we quickly run our application, it shows all of the issue statuses that are in our data source. Right. Now, what's the next step? So that's basically the function that you write within Power Apps if you have Dataverse as your data source. There are other ways to do it for other data sources, so this is not a fixed way to do the specific functionality for your dropdown. Right, what's next now is to filter the gallery based on the selection that is at the top. So I'm just going to resize this quickly. And then just quickly replace all of this, right? All of the function that is automatically added by Power Apps, because that's not what I want. And then I will use a filter function. And then you say filter. What are we filtering? We're filtering the facility maintenance demos data source based off of what? Based off of what? So in this case, you're trying to check if the selected, the status of the items or the status of the issues reported in the facility is matching the one that is selected on our drop-down list. So we say issue status. So you will look for issue status is equal to, right? If you say is equal to, what's the name of our drop-down? Drop-down 1 dot selected. Drop-down 1 dot selected dot value. And then if you finish your specific function like that, basically that's all of the functionality that you would need to filter your specific gallery. In this case, if you run your application and you change that from new to assigned, it'll show you that it's empty. There's nothing that is within our data source that has a status assigned or issue status assigned. If we change it to fixed, same concept, but if we quickly change it to new, it will show us the new issues that were quickly reported and have the issue status as new. Right, so basically that is it for our session and it for our business rules and the showcases of our business rules. This was a little bit of an extra functionality that you can add on your application. You can let your imagination run wild in terms of how you filter this, but basically this is how you do it. Right, you have now built a full functioning facility maintenance application using Power Apps and using Dataverse. So what's the next step? Next step is to go through this material, go through this video as well, and see how you can be able to build your own. And afterwards, be sure to check out the next session that we have next week, Tuesday, on the 8th of October, if I'm not mistaken, and watch that, where we add more functionality onto our application or onto our solution, because I do not want to spoil this series, because it's a 3-part series and it has more things coming along. Obviously, go through this process, build your own facility maintenance application, and let us know how it goes. Other than that, thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you are having a great time building this application. Thank you.